Turning now to Chairman Greenspan, soon after you took over the helm of the Fed, you had a baptism by fire with the great crash of 1987. What happened?
Japan launched a surprise attack on the United States of America by bombing the U.S. Naval Base at Pearl Harbor, Hawaii. The base was attacked by 350 Imperial Japanese aircrafts. Though the raid only lasted 75 minutes, the Japanese destroyed or damaged nearly 20 American naval vessels, including 8 battleships and more than 340 airplanes. Over 2,400 Americans died in the attack. And
the Vietnam War would see the realization of the Vietnamese dream of a single, unified, independent country taking its place in the world, free of outside oppression and rule. It is the type of story that has been retold throughout history, and had it occurred at any other point in history, then it would likely have been largely forgotten outside of the small Southeast Asian country, as so many wars of independence are.
Since their invention, nuclear weapons have overshadowed our lives. Even today, there are enough nuclear explosives to kill every man, woman, and child on the planet. But only once, 30 years ago this October, was the world gripped by a very real fear of nuclear war. The Cuban Missile Crisis was triggered by a series of miscalculations and mistakes that brought the United States and the Soviet Union to the brink of mutual annihilation.
By the 7th Freeway sign. There are other still photographs taken from other locations in Dealey Plaza which show the whole man standing under an open black umbrella. The only person under any umbrella in all of Dallas standing right at the location where all the shots come into the limousine.
From the concerns of a small community in western Arkansas, but maybe not. Mena, Arkansas is a small town in the mountains along the Arkansas-Oklahoma border. It has no interstate highway. It takes some effort to get here. But some people, some very interesting people in recent years apparently made that effort.
I don't think that there's really anything that we can pin down about them.
I believe there's truth in every story.
The rumors and gossip surround 2 small airfields. The first is the Mena Airport, where this giant C-130 military cargo plane, tail number N4469P, arrived one day last year. It is a huge plane for a small airport, a plane that originally belonged to the Royal Australian Air Force. Curiously, around the same time, a group of Australians arrived to work at the airport, telling investigators like Russell Welch of the Arkansas State Police some strange things. You've spoken with some of the Australians at the airport, correct?
Yes.
And some of them have told you they're part of a CIA operation?
Yes, it didn't seem to be too much of a secret.
And
everything shifts when Randy Weaver saws the barrels off of those shotguns. He had now committed a federal crime. But it's so clear that Randy Weaver was not a guy up there sawing the barrels off shotguns and selling them. He only committed this act after talking to an ATF informant. But then the idea is we can turn this guy.
There's nothing unusual about that. It's the way the federal criminal justice system works.
3. Americans watched breathlessly as FBI agents faced off with a self-proclaimed religious prophet and his armed followers in Central Texas. This was the Waco siege, a weeks-long standoff between the federal government and a religious group known as the Branch Davidians. Established by leader Victor Hautef, the Branch Davidians are a Christian sect, an offshoot of the Seventh-day Adventist Church, with a literal interpretation of the Bible's prophecies. Hautef and a group of his followers settled near Waco, Texas in 1935. Branch Davidians believe in the second 19th, 1993, Tanks rolled in and punched holes in its walls and deposited nearly 400 canisters of tear gas inside the building. Several hours later, a fire broke out.
This far out in the country without fire hydrants, you have to haul all of your water. It's just a very bad scenario here at this point.
Winds fanned the flames and reduced the entire property to ash within an hour. Davidians died, including David Koresh and 25 children.
What happened to him? And he said, I don't know. He may still be in custody, he may not. And so one of our investigators contacted Sheriff Jerry Cook and talked to him, and he said, well, McVeigh's in custody, but he's going to be released within probably an hour. And so we put a federal hold on him. And at that point, myself and several other agents got into a helicopter and flew up to Perry. And when we got up there, myself and another agent interviewed the different people that had been in McVeigh's cell. We were asking him questions, has McVeigh said anything? Did he comment about the bombing at all, anything of that nature? And they said no, he was just attentive to the radio that was giving updates on what was going on with the bombing investigation. And then finally, McVeigh was brought in to an office that Sheriff Cook gave us, and I asked McVeigh, I said, do you know why we're here? And he said, that thing in Oklahoma City, I guess. And I said, what do you mean by that? And he said, that bombing. I want an attorney. But
Tower 1, all units, evacuate the building.
At this hour, American and coalition forces are in the early stages of military operations to disarm Iraq, to free its people, and to defend the world from grave danger. On my orders, coalition forces have begun striking selected targets of military importance to undermine Saddam Hussein's ability to wage war. These are opening stages of what will be a broad and concerted campaign. More than 35 countries are giving crucial support, from the use of naval and air bases, to help with intelligence and logistics, to the deployment of combat units. Every nation in this coalition has chosen to bear the duty and share the honor of serving in our common defense. To all
locals that are farmers, hey, what are you going to do about my drugs? Because that's the way I make my money. That's the way I make a living. That's the way I feed my family. What are you going to do about it?
The Marines go on about their business.
How many people live here?
40.
14 people live here?
No, 40, sir.
40.
Yeah.
40. This house, that house right here, and these ones right here.
All these people of the village, about 40.
That way.
The day the final US military plane left Kabul airport, bringing to an end 20 years of American presence in Afghanistan. The US left behind stacks of military equipment from aircraft to guns, adding to the haul of weaponry the Taliban had been gathering in recent months, taken from the Afghan army as it retreated. So, what kind of equipment do they have now, and how dangerous could it be? Taliban members entered the former US military section of the airport just hours after the withdrawal. These fighters, members of the elite Badri 313 unit, can be seen inspecting CH-46 Sea Knight helicopters. This is one of 3 hangars in the military zone of the airport. A video filmed later on the north side shows an MD-530 helicopter. It's one of 43 kept in Afghanistan by the Afghan Air Force. Next to it, a light plane supplied to the Afghan Air Force by the Americans. The US Department for Defense has spent nearly $1.8 billion on building, training and equipping the Afghan Air Force since 2019. Wow. The figure spent across 20 years is far greater. But while images of Taliban fighters surrounded by sophisticated planes and helicopters is a concern, the reality could be quite different. The head of US Central Command has said that all 73 aircraft at Kabul airport were made unusable by the Americans. Analysis of satellite images from neighbouring Uzbekistan found that at least 45 aircraft had been moved to an airfield there. 21 light attack aircraft and tens of helicopters, including Black Hawks, can be seen on the tarmac in Uzbekistan. However, the Taliban are in possession of some aircraft that are still usable. One UH-60 Black Hawk helicopter was seen being flown by the Taliban in Kandahar province. The Afghan Air Force had 33 of these iconic American choppers in Afghanistan at the end of June.
1 year ago, Vladimir Putin launched what he called a special military operation. In reality, that was a full-scale invasion of Ukraine. The reason this next period is critical is that it will decide how long this war lasts. So how did we get here? The invasion began on February 24th. For months, Russia had been massing troops on Ukraine's border, but most people, including in Ukraine, didn't believe it would actually happen. The morning of the invasion, I was in Kyiv, and we woke up to watch Putin speaking, and about 5 minutes later, we started to hear the first explosions.
Vladimir Putin has just addressed the Russian people moments ago, announcing what Putin called the start of a military special operation, in his words, to demilitarize Ukraine.
And I'll read it to you. Western countries led by the U.S. are implementing all-round containment, encirclement, and suppression against us. And that would comprise the economic measures and also the military buildup here between the U.S. and its allies. And the theme was picked up by the foreign minister today, Qin Gang, who said that the U.S.'s actions in the Indo-Pacific, and here he's really talking about the military buildup, amount to the U.S. trying to set up an Indo-Pacific NATO. And then he warned specifically that it could lead or would lead to conflict and confrontation unless the U.S. put the brakes on. So definite.
TNFM World News, 9 March 2023. Well, folks, I got some headlines that I want to cover, and I got some closing remarks. Please subscribe, if not, here on Rumble, also over on Brighteon. Supposedly in 2 more days, I'll be able to continue content. For how long, I don't know, over at YouTube. Starting to rain here this morning, about 2 a.m. now. So, but we'll do the best we can. Hopefully the noise isn't too bad. Big shout out to my brother for calming me down with the latest and greatest of happenings, but from one warrior to the next. Big shout out to you, brother. Well, let's get into the screen capture, shall we? Don't let the cute little mousy fool you, but scientists create mice with 2 fathers. How you like that? 2 fathers, no mother needed. Trust the science, right? After making eggs from male cells. West Virginia train derailment, now CXX. Train derailment now in West Virginia. CSX train company, which runs through here locally where I'm at. One couple of cars in the river. Big shout out to Mr. Nick, investigative journalist Nick Sorta, always on the case. But I'll leave the links. This happening, currently developing, breaking. Multiple train derailments now around the country. 3 now in Ohio, Florida, and around the country, even Texas, now West Virginia. French Senate votes to raise retirement age from 62 to 64. It's happening worldwide, folks, as far as the globalist decline economy. Happening worldwide. And folks that are actually taken to the streets, making it known that they're not happy with these latest events transpiring now in Europe, France. With the retirement age now raising, because why? The global inflation markets, currency system is inflating. Same thing with interest rates now being promised to go up even higher in this country because of the debt and the money printing. The economy is about to burst. So is the world economy system. Got a few headlines here, folks, so bear with me. Concern grows among Sweden's Kurdish community. Canadian expert. Check this out. U.S. likely behind the Nord Stream bombing. Kyiv, capital of Ukraine, major reports, explosions, a wave of strikes. Thought they were out of rockets by Russia and Ukraine. And the rain has not letting up. The radar app is deceived me. But we'll continue. U.S. transfers Guantanamo Bay detainee to Saudi Arabia. More detainees after 21 years being transferred out of Guantanamo Bay, folks. Georgian police used water, tear gas to break up second day of protest. Critics say signals of the shift. Hundreds of police converged on streets around the parliament in a bid to disperse the protesters. This is becoming a worldwide event. Protests now gaining steam worldwide. Afghanistan now most repressive country for women. Report by the UN. Not that that's a reliable one, but they were going to change their ways. The Taliban, remember? Wrong. Russia-Ukraine war. Russian missiles target cities across Ukraine, officials say. This breaking this morning, or yesterday morning, more have you. Historic church. Here's a throwback, folks. Latest revelations by Tucker Carlson. See how far that goes. To the latest, got some headlines I want to cover about that latest Antifa attack on a police installation in Atlanta. But as Mr. Carlson noted, and it's a good point. You remember this? The historic church near White House damaged amid unrest, set on fire. The Nativity Church, right down the way within walking distance. You know, Trump, President then, Trump, held the Bible in solidarity to resist all the backlash to the division protest, George Floyd protest. They literally tried to burn that church down, but it was peaceful. Peaceful. Till we have this, covered it already, but it's worth covering again. New York City agrees to pay the same protesters involved in that burning of that church in 2020. Pay millions to hundreds of George Floyd protesters who were corralled by police during the protest of George Floyd. You know, the peaceful ones, burning cities, towns, churches, killing a African American police veteran. Remember that? Well, you should. Mainstream media doesn't want you to remember it because they don't cover it. The only thing that we hear is their side of the story and narrative. For example, January 6th. So the new videos being shown, again, we'll see how far this goes. Chucky Crybaby Schumer and others, Turtlehead McConnell, telling you don't have the right to see that footage that has now been recently shown and released by Fox News' Tucker Carlson. We have this latest doozy of a headline. Southern Poverty Law Center lawyer charged with domestic terrorism amid Atlanta riot. Notice they say amid Atlanta riot. This is Fox. No, it was an attack, folks. 2 police officers critically injured with phosphorus burns to the face by these domestic, almost 100, organized and converged on this police training site. Okay? Well, guess what? As Holla for Kamala said, they should continue and will continue, and we're going to garner support and bail and legal representation for our protesters. Well, she wasn't wrong, apparently, because this gentleman got out with $5,000 bail. Released on bail yesterday. Get it? Till we have these headlines. Taliban seen with Scar rifle. This is from 17. Carried by American commandos. Fitting the title, isn't it? Still the same then and now. Afghan gun shops sell U.S. weapons seized by Taliban. Seized and donated, that is. By who? Our current regime and president. With the withdrawal, despicable pullout in Afghanistan. I'll touch on that further here in a bit. More headlines. This from 21. Taliban has billions in U.S. weapons, including Black Hawk helicopters, and up to, the ones that were in the clip playing in, they were all rendered inoperable. Well, I could have sworn I just saw one flying. Didn't you? Up to 600,000 rifles. And I hear it's a lot more than that. So we have this latest. Pentagon reports no evidence of weapons lost to fraud in Ukraine. Oh, really? That's why only 32% is making it to the front line in soldiers and fighting forces in Ukraine. Where's the rest of it going? Probably the same place it always goes. Like the weapons left behind in Afghanistan. We're going to talk a little bit about that. A couple more here. National Guard soldier finds bag of guns. Where? Well, would you look at there? U.S.-Mexico border. Isn't that nice? Again, I'll leave the links. Do your own research. Don't listen to or believe anything I tell you. Just go do your own research, and you shall see as I and others. Like Mr. Paul Harvey once said. Now you have the rest of the story. Large group of migrant stash of weapons found by agents in Yuma. On Monday, Border Patrol agents, multiple arrests involving United States citizens and large group of migrants, discovering a stash of weapons, discovered a suspicious Chevrolet Tahoe in Yuma area, known to be used for undocumented immigrants. Industrial rail yard, often used for migrants to board and remain undetected while traveling north. Keep that as a footnote. Investigating the area found 13 undocumented immigrants attempted to stop the vehicle. Vehicle fled to end the pursuit. AK, AR, shotgun, and pistol, and more ammunition. Stash of weapons found. So that's just a snippet. Just a pinprick of the information that's out there. Now, almost 30 minutes long now. We conclude with this. The Ukraine war is not ending anytime soon. That's obvious. With the now fighter jets, now other countries offering to contribute along with divided states of America. We're going to see continuation of now what we're seeing from Afghanistan, pictured right here. A source 2 days ago tells me that there's thousands of armament, small arms, and other items being moved up through South and Central America. To the southern border of the United States. Ladies and gentlemen, the information that I can tell you is there's some major moves being made by the provocateurs and others, and offensive, possibly. There's multiple ethnic groups corralling, maneuvering, transporting goods. Strategic moves being made to join the already that have made it through the southern border, perhaps, when the shoe drops. Okay? You already see the geopolitical footing situation happening now in the Middle East continues, now Europe, and now South Pacific. Does that sound like any country to you, along with others, including ourselves? With the pullout of Afghanistan that's ready to take on superpower nations and go into World War III? You know, it just takes a little bit of common sense. That's all. It's not so common anymore, but I'll continue to hope and pray that we find some. It makes just as much sense as these politicians. Aren't you tired of these politicians continuing to dictate, narrate, and obliterate common sense, and actually have the mannerisms or thought processes to actually tell us what we do or do not deserve to see, believe, or look at? Meaning the truth. Now, I know there's a lot of you out there that's all in a just tizzy right now. Excited beyond belief. Champion the same narratives that we heard from 17. We shall see. My opinion, I don't see much changing until some major changes and decisions are made by the God-fearing populace to finally have enough and do something. Because a politician or politicians, like Lindsey Graham, for example, stating if you were in the seat sitting the day of January 6th, you should go to jail. Well, you know, I'm going to flip that coin, Mr. Graham. There's a lot of y'all who also, too, sit in those seats every day. My opinion, should go to jail as well, conducting criminal acts. Now, this same gentleman is wanting us to go to war, not only in the Ukraine, but now in Mexico. Really? Well, usually the truth is usually the opposite of what they say. Well, that tells me my source 2 days ago that means Lindsey Graham knows something. That means somebody's getting paid by these mercenary and drug/weapon trafficking evolutions. Is what that tells me. Never let a crisis go to waste, right? Well, that's a methodology used on both sides of the bird, left and right. Until you realize that, it will continue. It will not change. And that's in essence what's happening, ladies and gentlemen. Just like we're supposed to believe, all those protests conducted by Antifa and BLM were peaceful. Anybody remember the retired, high-ranking Mr. Doran, African-American police chief, retired from the force, who was killed by the protesters on that summer night, guarding that storefront? Where's the political justice for that gentleman? Oh no, you won't hear about that. You'll hear about, like so many others that committed suicide, which is terrible, grant you that, but they were not killed the day of January 6th. But they continue to exploit that. You know, big shout out and hat tip to Tucker Carlson, but I, myself, and others, we've been telling all of you, ladies and gentlemen, and others. In fact, one gentleman I'm going to be on with tomorrow, the Patriot Hour. This is not new news. I got to be quite frank and honest. None of that stuff that Mr. Carlson showed or talked about is anything new to me. A lot of folks like Table of Titans have discussed and talked about this for the last 3 years. 2 years since the election. What shocks me is how many people actually weren't aware of some of these findings, facts, and events being talked about since Monday by Tucker Carlson. Which proves my point. Then and now, it's the same thing, or story, or narrative, or lie that continues to be pushed. Don't you go thinking about that police officer that saw those bombs pre-planted that didn't detonate in Oklahoma City bombing, who was later, oh, that's right. They tried to say he was committed suicide as well. See how this works? No, he was murdered. Just like that DHS whistleblower. He supposedly committed suicide too. You know, the one that blew the whistle about Fast and Furious. Here's a better question Tucker Carlson probably won't even ask. I bet we never know the real reasoning or cause of suicide by those officers, including the one that laid in state, the one that was on camera, who was supposedly had already left this earth Of course they don't want us to see that. They never do. Or the reasoning Building 7 came down. Don't tell me it was from the buildings Tower 1 and 2. Burning furniture, etc. Your eyes are just as good as mine. A video's worth 10,000 words. It was demoed, ladies and gentlemen. They came out 10 years later and admitted it. But not right after the event. Why? Because we had a war to start. You know, little W, finishing big W's business. Mr. Bush, Sr. Get it? You see, it continues at the demise of the people, by and for the people. These elected kings and queens we now find ourselves surrounded by continue to manipulate the system to their advantage, and we're expected to abide by that narrative or else. The same Patriot Act developed after 9/11 is now being used to go after patriots and citizens of this country. That ought to be a wake-up call for every single living, breathing person in this country. That alone, much less seeing some video surveillance of the QAnon shaman. Huh? Folks, let me break it down to you. If we don't change the narrative, we're all going to be in the same spot as the QAnon shaman. Well, pray, plan, prepare, protect. Pray for the United States of America. Long live 1776. Support our vets. Patriots stand tall together. You better. For the anthem, keep fighting, hold the line, give all to God, including me. Big shouts out to all the folks out there doing the things. You know who you are. Check me out tomorrow. Hopefully everything goes well. Be over there with my brother Mike with the Patriot Hour. Check Space Shot 76 and I out on Mondays over on the new Spaces by Space Shot. Can't get any better than that. Big shout out to God's Guy, Gina Girl, the Gorilla. All the folks out there doing the things. Well, God bless each and every one of you. This is Matthew. Till next time with more to come. Signing off for now. Give me a like, subscribe. Thank you.